I've got to say, when even CoinDesk, often jokingly called FUD Desk, starts talking about XRP melting faces, it might be time to give XRP some attention. Just throwing that out there. Check this out. CoinDesk's headline says, XRP primed for record rally, echoing bullish Bitcoin pattern ahead of $100,000 scout. Pretty wild, right? CoinDesk, which has spent nearly the last decade cranking out negative articles about XRP, sometimes even spreading misinformation, I've had to correct here, is now flipping the script. It's definitely something worth paying attention to. Now that's pretty fascinating, don't you think? Maybe they're finally tired of being wrong about XRP. Could be. CoinDesk seems to be in the same boat for years. They've been putting out negative articles about XRP, and honestly, they still are. To be fair, it's not like they've suddenly started writing glowing reviews about XRP or anything. It feels like they just can't quite shake off what I like to call XRP derangement syndrome. But hey, progress is progress, right? Cointelegraph is another example. Check out this headline: 3 signs that XRP will soon break out after 4-month consolidation. You don't say. It's kind of funny seeing this now, especially when so many top analysts with solid track records have been saying the same thing for ages. Wild to see the shift happening, isn't it? If you're serious about XRP or any crypto trading, here's your power move. Sign up to Bybit using my exclusive link below. Not only do you get a welcome bonus, but you'll also help support the channel so we can keep bringing you top tier XRP insights before anyone else. It takes 30 seconds, no KYC for spot trading, and you can deposit XRP directly. It's smooth, fast, and secure. Check that link below and get started now. Don't miss out on those trading bonuses while they last. So the big question is, are we even going to have an alt season? Short answer, yes. And I'll explain why I'm so confident about that. But before we dive in, let me just say up front, I'm not a financial expert. This isn't financial advice. And you definitely shouldn't make any buying or selling decisions based solely on what I say or write. Sound good? All right, let's get into it. As I'm recording this, it's Saturday, June 28th, 2025. XRP is doing pretty well, just a hair under 2.19. Bitcoin sitting at an incredible $107,384.00. You might say we're in the calm before the storm. There's a lot happening, and while I don't want to dive too deep into the weeds, I came across a CoinDesk piece that caught my attention. I just have to share a couple of highlights because it's so interesting. CoinDesk has written plenty of questionable stuff about XRP over the years, but watching how their stance shifts is endlessly fascinating. This piece comes from Amkar Godbol, a chartered market technician who writes for CoinDesk, and here's what he had to say. Imagine a ship caught in a fierce storm, rocking wildly and taking on huge waves, but still managing to stay afloat. That resilience beneath the chaos hints that calm waters and smooth sailing are just around the corner. In the same way, when an asset's price holds steady despite bearish signals, it shows underlying strength and the possibility of a bull run ahead. Right now, that's exactly what's happening in the XRP market. It's a lot like the conditions we saw in the Bitcoin market before Bitcoin skyrocketed from $70,000.00 to $100,000.00 late last year. Honestly, I can appreciate a little optimism. And hey, they even acknowledge that Ripple and XRP are different. Looks like hell might have frozen over. They didn't even need to mention Ripple here. So maybe something's shifting, maybe not completely, but it feels like things are starting to change, doesn't it? They actually acknowledged that Ripple and XRP are 2 separate things. Over the years, they've often treated them as if they were one and the same. So seeing this is kind of wild, right? Anyway, I won't dive too deep into the weeds here because it gets pretty technical. If you're someone who's really into the nitty-gritty of technical analysis, though, feel free to pause the video anytime while I'm scrolling through, or just head over to the website to check it out for yourself. I want to focus on the part where they're making this comparison. So XRP is showing some similarities to last year when the weekly MACD kept flashing red all summer. Meanwhile, Bitcoin stayed pretty range bound, except for a few quick dips below $60,000.00. CoinDesk actually pointed out this divergence back in mid-September last year when Bitcoin was trading around $59,000.00. Fast forward a few weeks and Bitcoin shot up to $70,000.00, eventually hitting record highs of over $100,000.00 in November. The big question now is, will XRP follow a similar path? It's worth noting that they're suggesting there's some serious potential for XRP to break out to the upside. And honestly, it's not far-fetched. I've shared perspectives from tons of analysts who have solid track records, though of course no one's perfect, And the signs are there. It's pretty clear what's been happening with XRP this year. After hitting its all-time high, it's been consolidating and staying within a range. That's totally normal. In fact, the volatility has been decreasing as the year goes on, and now we're approaching a critical point. Something's going to give soon. This range won't hold forever. The big question is, will it break up or down? The analysts I follow are leaning towards an upward breakout. Honestly, it's hard to find anyone willing to confidently say this chart looks bearish right now. Analysts who are genuinely digging into this are all noticing the same thing. It's just so clear. Even Cointelegraph is picking up on it. They're pointing to Ripple's acquisitions and ledger updates as reasons XRP might go up. And hey, those are definitely great things to highlight. If they want to talk about that in their article to add some context, that's totally fine. XRP is set to take off no matter what. It's in such a perfect position right now that Ripple's buying activity doesn't even matter. Honestly, Ripple has had almost zero impact on XRP's price. Just look at the past. Even when there's amazing news, even news directly about XRP, the market barely reacts. It just moves with everything else. The same goes for XRP ledger upgrades. They're great, but the market doesn't really budge. Is that really going to be the main reason we look back at the XRP ledger upgrade? Come on, XRP would have been fine without it. That idea just doesn't make sense. But what's interesting is they're starting to acknowledge what other chart analysts have been pointing out. Analysts I've been highlighting on my channel for a while now. Here's the exciting part. Elliott wave analysis and a bullish pennant suggests an XRP price breakout could hit anywhere from $5.00 to $14.00. Honestly, if we only hit $5.00, that would be pretty disappointing. I mean, personally, I think that's just ridiculous. Now, I'm not here to make bold price predictions. I'm just a guy on the internet sharing thoughts, but I'd be really surprised if that's all we end up with. Sure, it might not be technically impossible, but I'd still find it super unlikely. Think about it. $5.00 would be less than a twofold increase from the peak of the last market, not even the most recent one, but 2 cycles ago when XRP hit its all-time high of $3.35. Less than double after almost a decade? That just doesn't add up to me. XRP has some of the strongest fundamentals out there right now. The market is perfectly set up, institutional money is pouring in, and there's massive interest in XRP spot ETFs. 11 firms are already pushing for them. That's more interest than any other coin has seen on the ETF side. For comparison, Solana was at 7 firms not too long ago and maybe up to 9 now, but XRP is clearly leading the pack. The demand is incredible. Now, if we're talking about double-digit price action for XRP, it's starting to feel more realistic, and who knows? The analysts predicting $20.00 to $30.00 might actually be right. We'll see soon enough. Either way, one thing's for sure, alt season is on the horizon, folks. Check out this post from Julian Biddle. He's the head of macro research at Global Macro Investors and works alongside Raoul Pal. Julian actually shared this just a few hours ago, around 9:44 a.m. this morning. Definitely worth a look. This chart tracks alt season, basically the percentage of assets, excluding stable coins, outperforming Bitcoin over a rolling 90-day period. The caption simply says alt season loading, and you can see why. When we hit extreme lows on the chart, we usually know what's around the corner, right? The data here goes back to 2019, so it doesn't show the 2017-2018 period, but we all remember the last big alt season in 2020. It's been a while since we've seen that kind of high. Sure, the market swings between extremes, but a full-blown alt season, not since 2021. When you hit an extreme like this, it's important to remember no single metric tells the whole story. But this is another piece of the puzzle that makes you pause and think, things are really starting to line up here. You can spot the confluence, right? When this indicator drops to 8% at the bottom, guess what usually happens next? Big moves tend to follow. It's not the ultimate answer, but it's definitely another tool to keep an eye on. Came across a post from a well-known analyst, TXMC, and he made an interesting point. Basically, he argued that we might not get an alt season. This was back in January because so much money is tied up in Bitcoin ETFs. Honestly, I've never found that argument very convincing. That said, I'm always open to hearing different perspectives, and this definitely feels like one of those contrarian takes worth considering. XRP community member Michelle Nightingale brought up an interesting point and asked the blockchain backer about it. She mentioned that TXMC has been saying capital won't flow into altcoins this cycle because Bitcoin demand is being driven by ETFs and corporate Bitcoin treasuries. The idea is that since institutions are unlikely to move Bitcoin profits into altcoins, alts could stay stagnant. She asked, do you think institutional demand will hurt alt season? I wanted to share my thoughts on this. Honestly, I'm not sure if the blockchain backer responded. I didn't see anything, but maybe you did. Either way, I personally don't agree with that narrative. When I responded, I said, I don't buy it. What do you think? What about all the money people have poured directly into Bitcoin instead of an ETF? You can bet those profits will start flowing into altcoins soon. Plus, let's not forget that the money going into Bitcoin ETFs is mostly from people who wouldn't have invested in crypto otherwise. These new investment options are bringing fresh faces to the space, while many others still prefer buying crypto directly on exchanges. Want proof? Just look at what happened after the election. Coinbase became one of the most downloaded apps in the world. To say there won't be an alt season is like saying people have stopped buying crypto on exchanges, and let's be real, that's just not happening. I really believe this, and there are plenty of other metrics you can check out too. I didn't want to dive too deep, but there are tons of savvy folks out there analyzing data, tracking inflows and outflows from exchanges, and showing all the evidence of significant price movement. Take Coinbase, for example. Just look at their quarterly earnings reports. They're doing great. Why? Because people are actively buying all kinds of assets on their platform. And that's just one case that shows how much activity is out there. The idea that people will lose interest in buying Bitcoin or using actual crypto exchanges just because there's now a centralized option like an ETF backed by Bitcoin doesn't sit right with me. I really don't think that's how it's going to play out. I mean, sure, the ETF is convenient, but to say it'll completely dry up interest in buying Bitcoin or other assets directly, I just don't buy it. By the time this cycle ends, I think it'll be pretty clear that this take doesn't hold up. No disrespect to the guy who made the argument. I think he's really smart. I just respectfully disagree because honestly, I don't find the reasoning convincing. That's all. Well, here we are. I wanted to remind you that many altcoins are so illiquid, it doesn't take much money flowing in to send them skyrocketing. Then the FOMO kicks in and suddenly you've got those wild green candles popping up everywhere. Oh, and I got something interesting to share with you. This one's from the Daily Hodl. An analyst is saying that a $170,000 Bitcoin might be closer than you think. This take comes from chart analyst TechDev, and the Daily Hodl is covering their perspective. TechDev is definitely one of the best out there, and with 532,000 followers, it's easy to see why. Recently, they shared some exciting insights about Bitcoin. After a correction into the $90,000, Bitcoin could potentially jump by over 60% from where it is now. According to them, 95,000 makes sense structurally, and $170,000 closer than you think. Pretty exciting, right? Also, most of the funds flowing into the crypto space aren't coming from ETFs. They're coming from people buying directly on crypto exchanges. If you're curious, it's worth looking into. Profits from Bitcoin are likely to start flowing into altcoins, including XRP. And honestly, if Bitcoin reaches those high levels, which isn't crazy to think about, it could get really exciting. I'm not saying it's guaranteed to hit $170,000. If it does, just imagine what XRP could be worth. People are going to take profits, and that money is going to rotate into other assets. On another note, TechDev has laid out a pretty bullish case for Bitcoin. He's looking at several indicators and believes Bitcoin cycles are closely tied to the overall macroeconomy. Based on his charts and historical patterns, he suggests the business cycle might be bottoming out and could start trending upwards soon. That kind of shift has lined up with huge Bitcoin rallies in the past, like in 2013, 2017, and 2021, when Bitcoin hit its cycle peaks. As TechDev puts it, reevaluate your top calls. You can see there's some solid confluence here, lots of metrics pointing to the same thing. Something big is brewing. An alt season could be just around the corner, folks. TechDev also highlights the copper to gold ratio as a strong signal for a potential massive Bitcoin surge. This ratio, often seen as a gauge for economic risk appetite, has hit a bottom similar to what we saw in 2020 and 2016, both times right before major Bitcoin bull runs. As the analyst puts it, the steep part lies ahead. Take a look at the chart. It's pretty clear what he's pointing out here. The trend is bottoming out, just as you'd hope and expect, especially when you consider historical patterns. So what's next? It's easy to guess. Remember that green dot from the last cycle? We're likely to see another one pop up around here soon. Big things are on the horizon. The analyst also highlighted that the M2 money supply's year-over-year change is signaling a potential Bitcoin surge. The global M2 money supply, which measures liquidity in the world's financial system, has shifted from negative to positive annual growth. I've been talking about this a lot this year, and for good reason. While no single metric tells the whole story, this one comes pretty close. When liquidity goes up, people, businesses, and institutions need to invest that money somewhere. So what happens next? History shows us there's usually more interest in riskier assets like stocks and cryptocurrencies, XRP included. That's why this is such a big deal. XRP being primed for a record rally. Yeah, that headline from CoinDesk sounds spot on to me. Just a quick reminder though, I'm not a financial advisor. Don't make any investment decisions based solely on what I say here. Seriously, that'd be a pretty bad idea. Always do your own research, friends. Thanks for watching. If you got value from this breakdown, drop a like, subscribe for real XRP updates, and don't forget to check out Bybit using my link below. You get a deposit bonus and it helps this channel grow. Win-win.